Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. We are celebrating our 100th episode today. So we're very, very excited. Who could have thought that this little podcast that started as a glimmer of an idea would go on for like 100 episodes? So thank you for listening along. We both decided to do horror films for this episode because Beth came up with the brilliant idea of picking movies that had the title 100 in them, either 100 or Saw. And for some reason, Bollywood films that have numbers in them do tend to move more towards the horror genre. Also, we clearly have some very strong opinions because some evil, dark force has tried to commandeer this podcast because this is our third attempt at recording because so far we've had a lot of technical difficulties, so we're definitely being haunted.
It's possibly the ghost of Devanand. We don't know.
It has to be the ghost of Devanand because he is our patron saint slash demon, and we were shit talking him right before we started.
He's mad that we haven't read the autobiography yet. We both have it, but we haven't
How
read it.
dare we? How dare we have lives? Don't we know that we should like kowtow to the great Devanand? So the movie I picked for this episode was 100 Days, which is from 1991. It has Jackie and Madhuri and skeletons and very good music, and it has Moon Sen in mostly mostly in lingerie for like 90% of the film. Occasionally, she wears an actual outfit. And then Beth had a lot of options that she was trying to decide which one to go with. And Beth, remind me which one you actually decided to pick.
Sau Saal Baad from 1989, which is a not particularly high budget horror film, and not to be confused with the 60s version that has Feroz Khan in it.
I bet the Feroz Khan one would probably have been like very swashbuckling, and there would be lots of like unbuttoned shirts in it. Who are the stars in this one?
Well, the biggest stars in this are into sort of past hero and into uncle territory, as is often the way with these lower budget horror films. So we have Raza Murad again as a very disgusting professor. We have Amjad Khan as a bus driver and comedy relief.
Okay.
And we have Danny Denzongpa as the helpful caretaker of the haunted Haveli. And he also has another role, which I will decide as we go on whether I want to spoil or not, who else he is. And then Narendranath is in this as well as the Thakur from the 100 years ago portion where a curse is set up. So he's only in a little bit, but he was in Ravu Chakar that we just talked about last time. So, it's a bunch of those kind of guys. And then a bunch of people I've never heard of. Oh, and I'm so sorry. Hemant Burje, who I know as Tarzan. I've seen him in very little stuff. But those are the names that you've heard of. And Joginder, of course. Joginder, if you like crappy horror, it's a big name. So those are the names. None of the women were people I'd heard of before.
Right. I'm such a mean person when you said Hemant Birjay, who is Tarzan, who I've seen very little of. And I was like, yeah, people who have seen Tarzan have also seen very little of him because of that little loincloth he wore. But so there's no real like heroine in this movie.
There is sort of, but I mean it's a Ramsey Brothers-ish sort of, haunted Haveli thing with a slightly more complicated plot than some of those that at least that I'm able to discern. And there are various women in it. There's so the original 100 years ago, the Joginder as the evil tantric places a curse on the royal house. And when a daughter is going to be born in the future, when a daughter is born, he will sacrifice her to reanimate his lost love that the royal family denied him. So she is there, the daughter 100 years later who is born, but she doesn't really matter.
So essentially what goes on in this movie, like what is mostly happening? Are people trying to foil this evil tantric's plans?
Yeah, eventually they are. So we start with the preamble with the 100 years ago, and then the foiled love is foiled because the love interest lady, who is a royal princess, turns to stone, which they achieve by dumping a bucket of gray paint or something on her. It's very cool looking, and you see this like time lapse where she's covered and looks like stone, and the statue looks as good as any of the other statues of people in the movie that we've seen in other films. So A+ to the statue work. And then 100 years later, a college class of which the royal daughter, whose father had moved her away from the Haveli because he knew about the curse, So he took her to the city. There, the Bombay college, university students are going to go on an archaeological sort of history field trip, which obviously, as a museum staff person and child of historians, I'm all for. The professor is Raza Murad. They go to this Haveli. People try to warn them away. They don't listen. They stay overnight. Bad things happen, blah, blah, blah. And what I like about this one is that there are some extra wrinkles with some of the side, well, kind of two of the side characters, I would say, Danny Denzongpa and then Raza Murad. And if we want to be spoilery, I can say what happens. But I don't know. It was a little more complex than some of the others, very much like this that I have seen. And I know for some people, Joginder is a real like. Absolutely not. He's barely in it. We don't see the evil tantric too much. And then when he, reanimates, when he's reanimated again. Oh, because in the past they sealed him up in a cave protected by Shiva's trident.
Oh
But then
gosh.
Raza
Okay.
Murad removes the trident to hide something in the cave because he's done something bad and he wants to hide the evidence. And then so Joginder is awoken and he makes a monster with like the shaggy hair and like walks around and stuff. So
Right.
it's everything you'd think it would be. It's pretty fun.
Nice. It's so funny. Like all of these like Bollywood horror movies have these like typical things in it. There's always ruins, there's always archaeological digs of some sort, poor college students on field trips, or a hapless young couple in
Yeah.
love who is like
Yeah.
stuck in a thunderstorm of some sort. And then there's always like curses happening. It's great. I feel like this movie, all it really needs is an Ichhadhari Nagin. That would be a nice addition.
It has one.
Oh, yay. Okay, then that sounds like a
It's
good
great.
masala cauldron to put all the
Yeah.
things in.
And I discovered something fascinating technologically while watching this film, which
Okay.
was that it did not appear with subtitles. But if you went into the settings on YouTube, this one had the option to auto translate from Hindi to English. As it
Oh,
played, based on what I understand from what just the oral Hindi that I can understand, it was doing quite well. Now, I'm sure
wow.
there are a lot of mistakes and problems, but overall, I felt like this was a remarkable advance in machine learning or whatever else is happening. And you know
Hmm.
how, for example, in English and Hindi, word order is different. It was,
Yes.
getting it right. And like words would appear and then they would flip as a sentence ended in Hindi, it would get reordered into English. It even
Wow.
did the songs, and a lot of movies that are subtitled don't do the songs. So when you
Right.
see like 8 lines of taba, 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 taba over and over again, it looks like the subtitles are having a seizure. But that's actually what they're saying over and over again. And Jaldi and Pani and Og and all these things like over and over and over again. So it was very effective. And so if you are an English
Oh,
needer like me, poke around in your YouTube settings and see if this is an option. It wasn't on all the films that I considered, but that's really why I went with this one, is because I could get it with English, at least sort of. And I was blown away. I had no idea.
I know you're crediting technology and AI with this, but may I posit another theory? It could
Please.
just be the ghost in it that
Could
wanted you
be.
to see this movie and
Could be.
sympathize with them.
Could be.
So,
Yeah, could be
yeah,
Joginder, could be Danny
yeah.
Denzongpa, could be Devanand, like
Could be the Nagin,
could be the Nugget. Yeah, could be
could be
anything.
the cement statue.
Right.
Lots of good
Princess
options. I
Rodney or
think that's
whatever
a
her name
more
was.
fun theory.
Yeah, it is more fun.
Yeah. So, have you seen 100 Days, which is the movie I picked?
I have, and I remember enjoying it very much.
It is so enjoyable. And it is one of the few movies that I've seen, few Hindi movies that I've seen that actually tackles the concept of like ESP, extrasensory perception,
Mhm.
like premonitions and things like that. Because that, for some reason, Hindi horror just tends not to go down that route. Hindi horror is primarily just like ghosts and possessions and tantrics. And then there's the whole subset of Nagins. But
Mhm.
think of any other film where the protagonist is basically having these visions of things that actually come true, and then those visions are used to knit together a narrative to basically solve a crime, and the crime is of a person that is very close to the protagonist. It's her actual sister. So I like 100 Days for that reason alone, because you just never get to see that. And it's also rare. For some reason, horror as a genre just, I feel like on some level it's looked down upon. I don't know why, because I personally enjoy horror very much. But they're always like these low budgety things, and like the top stars of the day tend not to do it. It's only now with Matic films with like Stree and Bedia, and now Stree 2 is coming, and Munja came out. Like, it's only now that it's starting to gain a little bit of traction, but at least for a long time, horror was just sort of like looked down upon.
Well,
And 100.
this is the thing about the body genres, right? Like, so things that have to do with sex are looked down on, fear is looked down on, uber violence is looked down on. So all of these kind of bodily
Yeah,
things, and film scholars write about this kind of thing all the time. But
right.
yeah, I think that's quite common in lots of cultures, not exactly
Hmm.
played out in the same ways, of course, but not
Yeah.
uncommon.
But I think 100 Days is, like, again, a cool departure from
Hmm.
that, where it literally has like A-list stars over top of their game. It has Madhuri Dixit plastered on every single photo and poster
Hmm.
and everything, as she should. It has Jackie Schroff in it. It has Javed Jaffrey in like a comic kind of a role,
Oh
Moon
yeah.
Hussein in a role as the ghostly person, and it has really good music, which again is a rarity in horror. I mean, with the exception of Mehel or something like that, most horror films don't really, they just don't have the budget that they can get the really big like music directors. And 100 Days has some amazing dance numbers in it that I enjoyed even to this day. So I think I particularly enjoy 100 Days so much because it's like it gives you your fill of like horror and psychological terror and skeletons and things like that, but then you also get to see a nicely lavishly mounted production that looks pretty, and it has A-list actors at the top of their game. But it's a really enjoyable film, and I've seen it multiple times when I was little, because it used to play late night
Wow.
on Indian cable, and I made the big mistake of watching it late at night after work, like around like 9:30, and then of course I had nightmares. But that is a very pitu thing to do. I didn't really think about
Now,
not watching it late.
you are an Italian speaker. Have you watched the
Mhm.
Italian source material for this film?
No, but when I looked on Wikipedia and I discovered that 100 Days is originally like it was originally an Italian movie, I was like, oh my God, I should totally watch this then. So that is
Yeah.
kind of on my list now. I do want to see it, and I'll probably try to see it without subtitles and stuff. So, because again, it's horror. So I'm guessing
Yeah.
that I'll still understand everything that they're saying,
I have
hopefully.
watched only clips of Jello films. They are too violent for me.
Mm.
But I appreciate the um more is more kind of splashy colors, lurid visuals, all that kind of stuff of the clips I have seen of them. So I think I can't wait to hear what you think of the Italian one.
Yeah, there's also an American version of
Yeah.
this, apparently. Like, I think the Italian came first, then I think the American, then the Hindi, and then I think there's also like a Telugu and a Kannada version or something. Like this movie
Tamil
does
was first. It was in
okay.
84. Yeah.
Yeah, because this one is 91. So, similarly to Mani Chitratal, this does seem to have been a film that,
Yeah.
people seem to have like run with it. Although, of course, I think It Happened One Night is probably the one that I've seen the most, remade. But Mani
Yeah.
Chitratal slash Bulbulaya is also one of those movies that it's horror, kind of sorta, it's psychological thriller, but that one is also something that is like high budget and mounted really beautifully. Um, Was there you I know you were considering watching some other movies that had Saw in the title. What were the other ones that you were considering?
So there was one, I'm forgetting all the names. So I wanted to watch the Feroz Khan 60s Sau Saal Baad because Feroz Khan in the 60s, of course I did. And it too is like, man stumbles upon old house, here's a ghostly woman's voice. I'm like, well, we've all seen that a million times. I would like a million and one.
Hmm.
But I could not find it with subtitles. And then there was what was the one about mothers-in-law, daughters-in-law?
I think that is Saw then Sasuke or
Yes,
something, but
thank
I
you.
haven't seen it.
Salden Sasuke. I read about that, and while it does have Rena Roy and I believe Lily Pawar, which are attractions, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law drama didn't sound fun to me, so I didn't watch it. I do really enjoy these kind of B-grade horror films. And my apologies for saying B-grade because that's obviously got some issues to use that terminology. But these kind of lower budget horror films, I like them very much. So uh, and I feel like there was another one with Ashok Kumar and Helen that I'm not even sure I could find the whole thing. So there's a couple. And, obviously the word 100 is useful for connoting a lot, just
Hmm.
sort of generalized a lot. So then you can use it to set something forward or backward in time. You can use something like to note a duration, like something's been lasting for 100 days, or there are 100 whatever. So it lends itself to an exaggerated format, I think. So like 100 villains, 100 ghosts, 100, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm not too surprised about the horror. When I realized we were both watching horror, I actually sat to think about that a little bit, and that's kind of what I came up with. I had done something similar when I realized I was at my 1000th Indian film. I chose something with 1000 in the title. A colleague suggested that to me, and I did that. And it was fun to look for things that way. There are a lot of films with numbers in the titles, obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't find quite as many hundreds as I thought I would. There's also a Bengali kind of masala film that I believe is a remake of a Telugu film with 100 in it that I read about, and I was like, nah, that doesn't sound fun. Give me my horror film.
Yeah. I think like 100 is also interesting because it's like a century. So it's like
Yeah.
all these different generational differences. And
Yeah.
then I don't know if this is probably is specific to India, but you know how in the US, like for emergency, you dial
Oh, yeah.
911?
Mhm.
In India, you actually dial 100. And so 100 is like the
Yeah.
emergency number in India. And in Marathi, there used to be a really long running TV show that starred Shivaji Satam, who also was later in a Hindi show that has run for like ages. It's called CID. So he was in a Marathi show called Ek Shunya Shunya, which is Marathi for 100. And he basically played like a police detective in it, and he would solve crimes because people would basically they will dial 100, and so he would solve them. So I think at least for Indian audiences, if you're going to have a number like 100 in the title, apart from all the other things about it just connoting age and a century and things like that, it's also a number that is inherently associated with danger, I think. Or at least,
Yeah,
I'm
that
in
makes
trouble,
sense.
please help me,
Yeah.
SOS.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
adds. Do you know when that started?
I have no idea, but I mean, obviously, like when did telephones come to India? I think my mom said that in the 70s, landlines became ubiquitous. And sometime in the 70s, like my maternal grandparents got their first landline, I want to say in like 1978 or something like that.
So
And
it
it was
may not,
still,
this sense of 100 is urgent danger may not apply to some older films
yeah.
or properties, but does apply later. That's cool to watch it
But
change.
it could
Yeah.
also be that, like, why did they pick 100? Like, to connote an emergency phone number? Was it 100 because 100 already has those connotations? Like, is 100 inherently
I
like
guess it's
a
easy to
scary
remember.
number? It is easy to, I mean, to me, honestly, 100 is easier than 911. You know what
Yeah.
I
And
mean? Like, 911 sounds much more random to me.
in Britain, it's something different as well. So like,
Oh,
everyone's got their thing. And obviously rotary phones, which we all would have
yeah.
been using for this, like dialing 0 takes longer than 1. So like, why aren't they all
Mhm.
111? And I'm
Yeah,
sure there's a great article
exactly.
about their explaining all this, but I did not look into it before this podcast. So I will
No,
Google
but now
after.
I'm very curious. I
Right.
literally want to do a deep dive into why did India pick 100 as like their concept of like an emergency number, and did 100 connote emergencies of some kind even before telephones were available? Like, why is that SOS? Because we know SOS comes from like Morse codes and stuff. So I don't know. I have no idea. Um, what other number films have you watched and liked that are not necessarily
Oh gosh.
100?
Well, we just did 36 Charingi Lane, which
Oh
was
yeah.
wonderful, of course. Um, I recall really liking Sat Hun Maaf,
Mm,
which is going to be a surprise because I'm not at least at the time, I wasn't a particular fan of Priyanka. She's risen
mhm.
in my estimation, especially since that film. I really, really like that film. And the idea of all these, people embodying different characters and all in the same film, but in a different way than like, oh, I'm twins, which I
Mhm.
also love, obviously, but this is a fun one. So those are the two that come to mind first, I would say.
Mm.
Beast Saal Baad was enjoyable, even with Biswajit.
Yeah.
So,
There's a Priyanka Chopra movie that I've actually never seen, Satkhun Maaf, mostly because I don't
mm,
really enjoy Priyanka Chopra. Like, it's
yeah,
surprising I haven't seen it because isn't the director isn't he Vishal Bharadwaj?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tend to like all of his films, but I think I haven't seen Sakuma
Yes, it
because it's
is.
Priyanka, and I haven't seen Matruki Bijli Ka Mandola because it just, first of all, the title is a mouthful, and secondly, it has Anushka, so no, thank you.
Ah,
Um, but I do love Vishal Bharadwaj as a general
Well,
rule.
and
So I don't know.
Sat Kunmaf has Irfan and Nasruddin Shah in it. So I feel like you
Yeah. If
would
I
like it.
watched it, I would be
Yeah.
watching it for Irfan though. But like
Yeah.
I don't know how much, but I mean it is going to be a PC centric movie. And I don't know if I can watch PC do like 7 characters. It's bad enough when she does one. Like I just don't like her. So I mean, although like to all the PC fans out there, it's not like I think she's a bad actress. I think she's a very talented actress. There's just something about her that is off-putting to her. And so I just don't like watching her
Mm,
movies if she's gonna be doing like multiple roles. I've already seen one film of hers, which is What's Your Rashi?
yeah.
It has Harman Babeja, whom I like to call Garibo Ka Ritik,
Sure.
and it was made by Ashutosh Govarkar.
Yeah.
And I watched it because it had fun songs, and the songs are very enjoyable. And it was kind of like a different subject. Like she plays like the 12 zodiac signs. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that could be cool.
It's a good
But the movie is
idea.
kind of a drag. Yeah,
It's
it's a
not
good
that great.
idea.
Yeah.
And I would love for that movie to be remade. If they remade it and they cast someone that I really like in that role, then I think it could be really good. The movie itself
Mhm.
was very long and annoying. Um, I'm trying to think of any like movie names that I like. One funny thing is that there's so many like David Dhawan films that have the number
Sure.
one in them.
Yeah.
In fact, we were just discussing that because we were trying to think of what Lolo film you should watch for
Yeah.
our Kapoor series. And there's all these like Kuli number one, hero number one, BB number one. Because that's the other thing. Like number one is always like you're the main star of the show, kind of. Have you seen any of those David Dhawan films, by the way?
I've seen Hero number one and Biwi number one. And
Okay.
he did Coolie number one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
saw that. Um, I think those are the three. Again, that's falling smack into the era of things I tend to avoid. So it takes
Yeah.
special planning for me to choose to watch one of those. But I'm looking at a list of films with numbers in the titles, and there
Mm.
are ever so many. Ache, The Power of One is one that I feel like I remember being advertised on DVD,
Mm.
like the run-ins to films on DVDs back when we used to rent DVDs. I don't know. Do Biga Zamin, I feel like I've seen that.
Oh, I've seen that. It's so sad. It has my
Yeah.
beloved Balraj Sahani in it. I'll watch anything with Balraj Sahani in it.
One, Two, Kafur, obviously.
Oh yeah,
I
I like
enjoy
that.
that one. Three Idiots, which I have still not seen and don't want to.
It's okay.
Page
It's so
three.
polarizing. I actually want you to see Three Idiots so you can tell me your opinion,
Mm.
because people either absolutely love it and they rabidly defend it, and then there's people that absolutely hate it, and then there's people like me who are like, eh. And I feel like the people like me who say that it's really rile up the people who really love it. And I'm like, why are you taking this so personally?
Mm.
Like, I don't care if you like that much. I think it's okay. But yeah, beware of telling the world that you thought Three Idiots was meh.
I can handle it.
Yeah.
I think I know our friends at Kundun have done an episode about it, which I've not even
Okay.
listened to because I have not seen the film.
Right.
And often I will listen to things about films I haven't seen, but that one because I just feel like I will at some point, particularly because I work in higher education. I feel like I've got to
Hmm.
watch this at some point, but I don't know what I'm waiting for. Maybe to watch it with someone who has thinky thoughts about it that I can
Right.
join in on or something. I don't know. If I should watch Three Idiots right away, tell me in the comments. It won't necessarily make me do it, but you should tell me because I'm interested.
Yeah.
Oh, Sate Pesata. That's another good
Oh
number
yeah.
film.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Though the
Yeah.
Nichar comes to mind, that's a really good
Mm-hmm.
one too. I like
Mm-hmm.
that one. Um, why does Bollywood not have a 1001 Nights, the Sherzad story? That would be so cool. Can you imagine like
Surely it
1001 Arabian
does.
Nights? Does it? Like Feroz Khan would be the perfect person to have made that movie, though. I'm very disappointed he did
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
He
Ooh.
would cast Zeenat Aman as Sherzad, and she would be wearing those beautiful costumes with like the translucent organza veils. Can you imagine? That would be so great. I would totally be willing to donate money to this film effort.
I'm looking at this list of 100 films. So we have 100 Days. We have Ik Dil Saw Afsane. I don't know that one at all. Dial 100. Saw Din Saske and Saw Crore.
Saw
That's the
is
Dev
the
Anand one,
movie
I think,
that
right?
has Amir Khan in it as well, I
Oh,
think,
does it?
right? I think so. There's
We are
a
going to
there's a
Google.
there's a Dev Anand movie that has Amir Khan in it, where I think Amir Khan is like a tennis professional, I want to say. Oh no, I'm confusing it with Aval Number, which literally
Yeah.
means number one. So yeah, Aval Number is the one where Amir is the tennis professional. The one you're talking about might possibly be the famous one from the screenshot that became viral, where Devanand has a picture of his dead mother behind him. And the dead mother, of course, is Cindy Crawford, because, yes, of course, Devanand's mom would be a famous supermodel who, by the way, happens to be 100% Caucasian. And Devanand looks nothing like her. But in his mind, he very much has those supermodel genes. And who can argue with our patron saint?
Saw Crore is about the real life story of a badminton player who was murdered. So again, we have
Okay.
kind of a danger situation. We also have Nasiruddin Shah in it. And the idea of
Okay.
Dev Anand and Nasiruddin Shah in the same film is a little overwhelming. I might need to lie down.
All you need is Amrish Puri. If you have Amrish Puri, that means you're going
Right.
to need smelling salts. You're going to have to watch that
Right.
movie in installments, like 25 minutes, and then lie down, and then 25 minutes, have some tea.
It's true. It's true. Oh, what are some of the things that keep you coming back time after time to the film that you chose for 100? Because you've seen it a lot, you said.
Yeah, 100 Days. 100 Days, I just think it's a really fun movie. Like, Partho Ghosh, who is the director, this was apparently his very first film that he made. And I've
Hmm.
only seen one other Partho Ghosh directorial venture, which is Agni Sakshi, which was a copy of Sleeping with the Enemy. It has Nana Patekar and Manisha Koirala. So Manisha Koirala plays the Julia Roberts character, and Nana Patekar plays the horrible husband who she runs away from. And I forget who the hero was in Agni Sakshi, like, who like takes care of her and stuff. I want to say it was Rishi Kapoor, but I can't remember. I'll have to Google it. But Agni
Hmm.
Sakshi, I remember being a decent movie, but it was also very icky to watch because it was very distressing, like to the
Hmm.
point that I can watch Sleeping with the Enemy like multiple times, because it's very frightening. Like, especially my favorite scene from Sleeping with the Enemy is when she opens her kitchen cabinet and she discovers all the cans in it have
I
now been
remember that.
perfectly, yeah, like, it
Oh,
was
it's
such an evocative.
horrible.
Yeah, but like Sleeping with the Enemy was a great movie because all of the horrifying sensations that you got as a viewer, and you empathize with Julia Roberts, like that creepy sensation you got
Mm.
down the nape of
Hmm.
your neck, was because it was all kind of like assumed, and you were like putting the dots together. Agni Sakshi is very heavy handed. It's
Hmm.
very like, it's a lot of screaming at Manisha, a lot of like assault. It's a really horrible movie, I would say. And it's not a movie I would watch again. And it very much treads that line of like, like my one big problem that I have with Banzali, and why I refuse to watch Hiramanti, is that there's talking about women who have been mistreated by society, and then there's kind of like exploiting them again on screen. And
Hmm.
Agni Sakshi kind of treads that same line where it gives you an icky vibe. I mean, Manisha acts really well in it, and so does Nana Patekar, and has that one very famous song, Inkar Karna Mushkil Hai.
Hmm.
It's terrible choreography. But that is kind of the only Parthagosh film I've seen apart from 100 Days. 100 Days just has such a good soundtrack, and Madhuri looks like a dream in every scene. Like, she looks stunning when she's playing tennis. She looks stunning when she's in her saris. She looks stunning when she's in her salwar kameezes. She has all these amazing songs that are, I think, choreographed by Saroj Khan, and she's
Hmm.
beautiful in them. There's one song I really love. It's called Sunbelia, and it's shot on a beach, and there's horses running around, and Madhuri is just dancing on the beach, and Jackie Shroff is there, and every time she takes a spin, a horse runs past her, and she takes a spin, and it's so much fun. Like, the songs and the dances in 100 Days alone are amazing. And there's a song that she does with Javed Jaffri at like a stage show.
Yeah,
It's called De De Dil. Nahi, Le Le Dil. And Javed Jaffri is so fun in this movie as well.
he's
He's
fun.
kind of like the unrequited lover. Like, he loves
Yeah.
Madhuri, but she
Yeah.
just friend zones him, and then she falls in love with Jackie. It also has a very interesting twist in it that I don't want to give away in case people have not seen. And so I will just make one cryptic statement, which is
Mm.
when a man is really love bombing you to the point of almost stalking you, you do need to be questioning his intentions.
This is
And
every film.
this is every film though. Yeah. Anytime someone is love bombing you and really laying it on thick, you do need to wonder if that person has an agenda. Um, Also, what might interest you is that there's a whole museum subplot in this film as well. So that is
That's
very
right. There
cool.
is. Yeah.
Because Moon Sen, who is so the lead character, like Madhuri Dixit's name in the movie is Devi. So Devi's sister Rama, which is Moon Sen, is, I think she's doing her PhD in like Indian sculpture or art
Mm.
or something like that. And so she goes to this like museum regularly to do her research and like to do her notes and stuff. So a museum also plays a part
That's right.
in this movie, and it's a very fast-paced film. Like it immediately gets into the premonitions that Madhuri has been having. You see multiple shots of her, like, almost getting dizzy because she's seeing these things play out and they're very terrifying for her. You see multiple shots of her going to bed and waking up in a cold sweat, just nightmares. And I think Madhuri does such a good job of
Mm.
playing someone who's really kind of haunted by her visions. And it's also interesting because, like, she's the person, and this is not a spoiler, this is very early on in the movie, you discover that she is terrified for her sister's life because in her visions she's seeing her sister being murdered. And it's very frustrating for her because she's trying to convince people, like, my sister has been murdered, and nobody will believe her.
Right.
Because how do you get the authorities or even your family members to believe you when you say, oh, I saw it in a vision? Like, they're just going to laugh you out of wherever. So it's an interesting movie. It has a lot of things going on, and I think Madhuri really pulls it off, and you have so much sympathy for her. And then there's a twist that happens later on in the film where your heart really goes out to her. It's very well done, and she really pulls it off. I actually think she should have gotten top billing in this film instead
Mm.
of Jackie Shroff, because he kind of doesn't really do anything except be handsome and wear a suit. But I feel like I just described Jackie Shroff in most of his films. So, and at one point I was like, oh, look, it's Tiger Shroff's dad. So yeah, I would recommend 100 Days for people who want to watch a movie that has a lot of different layers, and
Yeah.
especially if you want to watch a film that deals with the concept of like premonitions and ESP and things like that, which sounds absolutely terrifying. And I'm very happy I do not have any such skills. I barely know what's going on around me, Beth.
It's easier that way.
It really is.
You want me to
I
deal
have
with the
no
future
desire.
too? Mm.
I have no desire whatsoever to wake up dreaming of people's murders.
No, 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 no.
Have you seen any films that, like, they don't, it doesn't have to be Hindi, but like, have you seen any films that deal with the issue of ESP? Because the only thing I'm familiar with that deals with like premonitions and things like that is basically the X-Files, which I'm a super fan of.
I mean, I must have, but nothing comes to mind. But also,
Hmm.
now that you mention it, the heroine, such that she is of the film I watched, has dream premonitions of bad things happening. So I guess it's not as much of a factor or a feature, I think, as in the one you watched. But so
Hmm.
yeah, here and there.
Because I would definitely I would want to watch more films like that, because
Mm.
like expand my sort of horror subset past just the creature features. Is there any other like numerical film that you want to watch next? Maybe the Three Idiots, like you said, but anything
Right.
else?
Three Idiots is sort of hovering around. That's something I will get to. Really, 36 Charangi Lane had been on my list for years. So that was the big one to check
I
off.
want to watch Teen Diware, which I still haven't watched because I feel like it's going to be a bit depressing. But it is directed by Nagesh Kokunur, whom I really like.
Mm.
I love his movie Door. I really love Hyderabad Blues. Like when Hyderabad Blues came out, that was my jam. And my friends and I would keep saying to each other, "Dil pe mat le yaar," because it's like one of the lines in that movie. So because it's a Nagesh Kokunur film, I want to see it, and it has Juhi Chawla in it, but it also deals with like prisons and stuff, and I was like,
Mm.
do I need that in my life? I don't know. But that's I will eventually, I hope, get around to it along with Sat Kunmav at some point.
Yeah. I was just looking at this big list of number films. Yeah, I don't think there's anything really. Oh, I hear kitty cats. Anything really burning up a spot on my list, at least in Hindi, that I can think of. So, um,
My kitty cat is playing with her llama toy. I bought her these two llama toys. It's like a big llama and a little llama, and she loves it, and she carries it in her mouth all over the house.
oh, I will put in a plug for Teen. Do you remember that film with Vidya and Nawaz?
I don't remember this movie. Theme?
Mhm. Uh, yeah, remake of a South Korean film, and it has Vidya, Amitabh, Nawaz, Sabyasachi Chakraborty, and various others. It was another because I forget if I've talked about this on the podcast. My very favorite micro genre of Indian films is people looking for things in Calcutta.
You told
and
me.
this falls into that category. So it is not like the most amazing, but it was, I think, probably trying to sort of capitalize on Kahani, even though it was a couple years later, but worth a watch, I would say.
Have you seen? Oh, by the way, I just looked up Agni Sakshi, and the hero in it is actually Jackie Shroff. It's not
Hmm.
Rishi Kapoor. Oh, I think I was confusing Rishi Kapoor because there's another Sleeping with the Enemy. So, Sleeping with the Enemy resulted in, I think, three Bollywood
Wow.
remakes that came out soon after
Wow.
each other, and it was like really talked about and stuff. So, Agni Sakshi had Manisha Koirala in it. I think Yarana is also the same story, perhaps. That one had Madhuri Dixit and that one had Rishi Kapoor in it. And then the third one was Darar, which had Arbaz Khan as the antagonist and it had Juhi Chawla in it. So I remember
Hmm.
vaguely, all these three films are bad, by the way. But I remember when it came out and it was really promoted in the media as like, you're basically going to decide which movie you're going to watch based on who your favorite stars are because it's the same story. So it's like, if you like Manisha, watch this. If you like Madhuri, watch this. And if you like Juhi, watch that. And then antagonist wise, also like Darar is, by the way, the worst of it. Like Juhi
Ah,
Chawla's performance in Darar is horrible.
oh
Like the
no.
scenes where you're supposed to like sympathize with her and feel bad for her, her helium voice just really distracts. And she's
Hmm.
very weak in some of those scenes where I was just like, oh God. And it has Arbaz Khan. So that is the weakest of those
Oh
films.
boy.
Um, I was looking at the list also, and of course, there's Shri Char Sobis, which we watched, the Raj Kapoor one, and then there's 1942, A Love Story. Have you seen that? The Anil Kapoor,
Yeah, I
Manisha
don't
Koirala,
I
Vidhu
don't
Vinod
think I
Chopra production.
actually have, but the music
Hmm.
was such a big deal that am I just thinking of the music or have I actually seen it and I don't know? I
The
don't
music is
know.
really good in that movie, but the movie
Yeah,
itself is like it's very long and draggy, and it's just kind of like, I've seen it once. It wasn't that big a deal. Also, Anil Kapoor and Manisha made for a very strange pair. I don't know why I didn't like them together.
I
But
have not
Manisha,
seen
oh
it.
my God, every frame in this movie, she just looked otherworldly beautiful. Like
Mm,
especially that song "Ek Ladki Ko Dekha,"
yeah,
which became such a big hit.
yeah.
There's these scenes where she's like splashing water on her face and then just dabbing it with a towel, and I was like, "How are you so beautiful?" But yeah, that's it's okay. You're not missing much by not watching it.
Okay.
Um, okay. I think that kind of concludes this episode. Do you think you might rewatch 100 Days at some point or no?
I would be happy to. Yeah, I really enjoyed it very much, especially if I could find one with, not automatically generated subtitles, which again, let me emphasize, were pretty darn good as far as I could tell. So, but yeah,
So
I
I
would watch it
actually
again.
saw it on Einthusen, and I think it had subtitles that I couldn't turn off. So I actually find that annoying when Einthusen has
Oh, sure,
subtitles
yeah,
and
that
it
would
won't
be,
let me turn them off because I was like,
yeah,
okay, I don't want these. Please give
yeah,
me the option. So I think the
yeah.
Einthusen run probably actually has them, and they probably were good. I
Why
didn't
didn't
really
I
look at
see
them.
that? I wonder. Oh dear.
Well, I'd already told you I wanted to watch 100 Days, so you probably
Oh,
wanted to
that's
pick it
why.
up the
That's right.
movie.
That's right. Yeah.
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 Because the minute you said movies with 100 title, I was like, I got mine. Dibs.
What I want to rewatch is Dial 100 because I remember I only saw it a few years ago, but I remember it being quite enjoyable as a more sort of 70s. Um, it's got a bunch of people I like in it. I should have pulled this up. I apologize. I want to watch that one again. Sorry, 1982. So it has
Hmm.
Vinod Mehra and Aruna Irani and Helen and Asrani and
Oh,
Amjad Khan and people like that. So, and it's a jewel theft kind of
oh,
thing, which is very much
nice.
my kind of film. So,
Yeah. By the way, I'm still mentally cracking up at the idea of your horror film having Raza Murad as a professor because I ain't buying that.
well, it's really I don't I do want people to watch this movie, so I don't want to spoil it, but
Okay.
it's a little disconcerting at first because actually when I think that I can't remember if I saw him before I heard him, but when I noticed who it was, I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then he turns out to be something other than what he appears. And yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
the thing about this movie is I wonder how they got Danny and Amjad Khan in it in particular. Um, but one must pay one's mortgage and
Hmm.
work is good. And Danny in particular brought a real sort of it's not gravitas, but like an elegance kind of to this that I think a lot of other
Yeah.
people would not have. He doesn't have a ton of lines. He's only in it for, short spurts, but and at the beginning they actually say something like we thank Shri Shri Denny Dunzongpa or whatever for helping us
Ah,
with our
okay.
film or something like that. So like they were right. He really brings a nice touch to this. And I think this is the other thing. This upload says it's restored from VCD. I've never seen someone claim to restore a film from
Oh
VCD
my
because those were
God.
usually terrible quality in my, not vast experience, but I certainly saw some of those over the early years. So the picture is not great, and there's particularly a scene with Danny where he has a what I suspect is a very cool costume that you can't see very well. Um, but yeah, I would recommend people give it a try if you like horror films. Watch it and let me know.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes this episode. Thank you for watching Filmi Ladies and listening to us on Spotify. If that's where you get your Filmi Ladies fix, let us know what your favorite numerical movies are. And tell us if you've seen either of the films that Beth and I have talked about in this episode. And thank you for supporting our podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you like it, tell your friends about it. And if you hate it, don't tell anyone about it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.